I'd like to welcome all of you to our program this evening. We're very excited to be performing for you. The purpose of this concert is to demonstrate to you and to inform you of what we've been doing with your child these 4 months and what's in store for them in the future in the elementary program. But before we get started, I'd like to make a couple of introductions. First of all, to my left and your right is my colleague, Mr. Scott Crecilius. And my name is Renee Fiddler, and together Scott and I service all 12 buildings in band. And of course, seated behind me, I'm very, very proud to be on the stage with our fabulous 5th grade band students from Bemis, Leonard, and Schroeder. Let's give them a big hand. And this evening we have 170 kids up on the stage, and this kind of worked out primarily due to scheduling, but we also thought it would be fun that they would have an opportunity to play in this nice, beautiful new Troy High School auditorium. And to help with that, we had our administrators and teachers come out, and I'd like to take just a moment of your time to thank these people for taking an evening out of their week. Helping tonight, we have Mrs. Pam Nagarata from Schroeder and Mr. Ken Lottie from Bemis and Mr. Jerry Dushinsky from Leonard. And several teachers as well. We have the entire 5th grade staff from Schroeder. We have Mrs. Dorales, Mrs. Roman, Mrs. Gregory, and Mrs. Paleshi. And from Leonard, we have Mrs. Murda. And I hope that I didn't leave anybody out. If I did, I would like to give you credit. It's hard to see up here. But we appreciate this very much in helping us get it organized. Also, we have Mike Williams, who's Executive Director of Elementary Education here tonight. Mike? Haven't had an opportunity, we'd like to give a great big warm welcome to a new colleague of ours in the instrumental music department who has been here to help this evening, Mr. Joe Havrilla, who is the new band director here at Troy High. Joe, if you could just raise your hand. I can't see a thing, so I don't know where you are. Now we'd like to take an opportunity to show you all of the instruments that we have in our band, and our next piece features each group. Now that you've had a chance to see each group of instruments, we'd like to take you back to the first month of band, but I did forget something very, very important. I want to make sure you get this. When I did this program, somehow something happened, and Ferris Sadiq and Chris Sable did not make it on the program. I don't know why. We double-checked it, but they still got missed. Could I have Chris and Ferris stand up, please? There's our 2 clarinet players. The 2 S's got taken out for some reason. We'll make sure that they get a special program printed up with their names in it. I apologize again, it got lost in PageMaker somewhere. We'd like to take you back to the very first month of band when we were learning how to get a sound on our instrument. and to finger the notes. Well, we had to learn note reading, and this in itself is a new symbol system. Essentially, these students had to learn to read all over again. So it was sharpen those reading skills and put them to work. And what we did once we learned to read the music is we had to learn to count. And we had some exercises in our book that helped us in our counting, and we'd like to play that for you right now. Part of the group is going to play just to keep the beat, while the other part of the group claps the piece. This is called play and clap. This is how we first learned. Finally, we learned 3 notes and we learned how to stay together. We were ready to try some good stuff. We'd like to demonstrate for you in our next medley of pieces that are listed on your program. And this was a very exciting time for us because it wasn't just whole notes or half notes anymore. And you're going to notice that Mr. Crasilius and I are up here with this baton. This is like our instrument, and we use this to give the students visual guidance. Because we're in such a large group, 170 kids, and by the way, have never had a rehearsal together like this before, we know that they can watch our symbols. If they watch our conducting very carefully, everything should be together, should stay together just fine. Let's see how they do. I'd say their training's coming along very nicely, wouldn't you? And it's thanks to you parents for encouraging them to practice. We as teachers really appreciate that. Up till now, you've been hearing the students play in unison the first few pieces, and unison means one sound, where they're all playing on the same pitch. And now we were becoming more diversified in our playing skills, and we were ready to try what is just the opposite of unison, called harmony, where 2 different parts can be played at the same time, and we'd like to demonstrate that to you in our next piece. kind instrument is one hurdle right after another. First we had to learn to play that instrument, we had to learn to read the music, and with each piece that we played for you, we've learned a new skill. And aha, the ultimate challenge comes, as Mr. Crecilius will demonstrate.
The next piece is filled with all kinds of very difficult rhythms. They've taken a song that is very recognizable, hopefully, to you after we play it, and they've placed rest throughout the song. So with 170 students, we'll see if we can all rest when we're supposed to rest. That's going to be a challenge, and we did it in the room, and we probably had 90%, so we'll see if we can do just a little better than that. So we'll clap it first, and then we'll play it for you. Now we'd like to show you a song in 3/4 time. As Mrs. Fiddler indicated, we have been teaching the students about conducting, and we've actually had them conduct themselves in the class as they watch me, as they watch Mrs. Fiddler. And the next song is in 3/4 time, so instead of beating 4 beats per measure, we're only beating 3 beats per measure. So they have to change the way they're counting. So what we're going to do for you on this song is we're going to break it apart. We're going to just show you the melody first, played by the flutes, the clarinets, and the saxophones. So listen to the melody first, and we'll stop and explain the rest as we take apart this piece. So you can see that's pretty important. That is the melody. However, there are 2 other parts we'd like to show you. The next part is called the bass rhythm, and that'll be played by the bass instruments of the group, and that will be in the 5th grade band. Our lowest wind instrument is the trombone, so we'll hear the trombones and the low bass drum. They have a very simple part, but it's very important, as you'll see. And now the last part is called the waltz rhythm, and those people are the trumpets and the snare drum. And this is probably the most difficult part because they have to rest on beat 1. Beat 1's the strongest beat in 3/4 time, but they have to rest on it. Let's see if they can play it. Now we'd like to present the band class waltz. Now we're also teaching your child not only the correct notes, correct fingerings, how to count, but also musicianship. Musicianship is very important. It's how the music emotionally and really logically fits together. So the next song is to be played in phrases, or a musical sentence, as we say. And so the children need to make sure they're not breathing until they see their breath mark. And there is a breath mark printed in the page, but that tends to be every 4 measures. So hopefully all the instruments at this point are able to do that. It's a little bit more difficult, however, for the flutes, because it does take a lot of air to make it through one phrase. So they may end up having to breathe a couple times during the phrase. So this is called Son of My Soul. So as you can see, that's a relatively short song. Now we move into our full-length band compositions for 5th grade. And as you can see in the 2 songs ago in the band class waltz, it does take quite a bit of teamwork. And we're teaching the children as they go through our music program, especially instrumental music, that it certainly is a team effort. They're all very important individuals, but they have to unite as a team. And I'm sure they'll find out later that's a very good thing to have as they go into employment situations later in the future. They must work together as a team. We also feature our percussion section once in a while in this song, with just a very small rhythm that they play all by themselves. So they have to be counting very carefully. And also we worked on listening. They had to listen to who has the melody. Not everybody has the melody in this song all the way through, like you've heard some of the other songs. So they have to be very careful. If they don't have the melody, they need to be very quiet. If they do have the melody, they can play out and bring it right out. So they need to decide, and as we work on it in class, they listen. And I ask them, is that really the melody? Is that important? And they need to determine that. So our first full-length band composition for this evening, Rock Goes the Weasel.
Now we need to give the kids, Amishers, a little rest. These muscles, of course, they're learning to be developed, but it's like doing anything new. They get sore and they get tired easily. So I'd like to take just a moment to tell you a little bit about the woodwind family. If you happen to have a flute player in your family, of course they're playing the smallest instrument in the band and the highest pitched, and it's also the softest. And that's one of the reasons that we have the flutes in the front row. But you, parents of flute players, might be finding that your child is a little bit more frustrated maybe than a child on another instrument, and it's for good reason. And I would like you to please continue to encourage your flute player to keep working. First of all, when learning to play the flute, it's very much like blowing into a pop bottle, and they have to learn to find just the right spot in this little tone hole to get the sound. That doesn't always come right away. Sometimes it takes lots of time, and many of our flute players are still working at trying to perfect a nice, clean, clear sound, so please encourage them. That's the first drawback. Is it's kind of frustrating initially to get a sound on, but once they get a sound, it's fine. The other thing that the flute players have to do right off the bat is use all their fingers. Lots and lots of finger switching. Their thumbs get sore, their arm gets sore from holding the flute up. That's very common too, and I tell flute players that please go home, just practice switching your notes, switching the fingers back and forth without even blowing into the instrument at first. And get used to the finger coordination. They have to build that up. And I guarantee it, if they work on this every day, it's going to get easier and easier, and before you know it, they're going to be playing lots and lots of things. But they have to put in that effort. It gets easier for the flutes the second semester. They've kind of had it rough this first semester, so if you're a parent of a flute player, please keep encouraging them. As with all wind players, they're going to experience some dizziness, but flute players especially have it more because they're blowing so much air into this little instrument. And I tell them, please, if you get dizzy, just stop playing. Don't turn all purple and blue and pass out and your mother finds you up in your bedroom or down in the family room laying on the floor and she calls the EMS. No, we don't want that to happen. And I do have some kids that they sometimes don't know to stop and they get very, very dizzy and they can make themselves sick. So we have to monitor that carefully at the beginning. So for flute players, we're going to be extending the note range, but basically I would say they're over the hump now. So just keep encouraging them to work on their finger switches and striving for a good sound. For the parents of clarinet players, I'd have to say they've had it pretty easy up to now, but there's some things that we have to watch out for. And second semester, we've got some real challenges. First of all, saxophones and clarinets have this piece of wood on the back called a reed, and you know what? You probably already found out they're chipping and breaking, and Mom, I need new reeds. And I would suggest, because they can't play without a reed, the instrument doesn't make a sound, and if it has a chip in the wrong place or a big crack, then they get nothing but squeaks and squawks. I would suggest that you just pay the money right now. I think it's maybe, I don't quote me, but around $20 for a box of reeds. Get them a box of number 2 reeds and make sure that they take good care of these reeds, and they should last them a good long time. I tell the kids that this reed can last them 1 second or 1 month, depending on how well they take care of it. When it gets wet, it chips easily if they brush it against their cheeks or their clothing. We tell them not to chew on their reed, not to take their finger and touch the tip of it or it's going to break. So you might want to aid them in making sure they take good care of that reed, so that saves you a little bit of money too. The clarinet started out, basically it was just having the top 3 fingers down like this. But we're starting to work in the lower register now, and through the second semester we will be, and using all of our fingers, and even we're going to work a little bit on crossing the break, which is the most difficult thing that a 5th grade clarinetist could learn to use. We start on it, and then they continue to work on it in middle school. But crossing the break is where they have just 1 or 0 or just a few fingers down to all the fingers down, plus the octave key in the back. They have to put their thumb over a whole and a key. And it's a big stretch for a 5th grader, and that's why we only work on it just a little bit. But as they start to work on these lower fingerings, it's going to hurt more up here, there's going to be more resistance, there's going to be more squeaks and squawks, because we're primarily interested in keeping the holes covered with the fat pad of the finger. If they use the tips, it doesn't work. Fat pad of the finger, and we're going to be working on this. Have your child do some finger exercises like this, maybe while they're watching TV. Just pressing all 6 fingers down in the front and the thumb, and we always keep our eye on this. If you look on the evaluation, it says right thumb. It's because it looked like this. And they can't play their notes down here unless the thumb is back. So so we have to constantly watch that. So second semester clarinets have a challenge. Please encourage them to get through it. It'll be very rewarding in the end. And then we have the largest member of the woodwind family, the E-flat alto saxophone. I'm going to have this young lady just stand up so you can see. Saxophone, of course, is the heaviest instrument. That's why they have to wear a neck strap to help hold it up. And saxes are now getting into more chromatic notes. Many times in the band arrangements, they get into these, what we call accidentals, and they have to constantly be working on their fingerings, memorizing their fingerings. They have quite a range already. And like the clarinets, keep them in a supply of number 2 reeds. They should always have reeds when they come to class. And what we'll be doing is just extending the note range. I'd say saxes have been down the middle of the road. They've had quite a few notes that they've learned. Encourage them to keep memorizing those notes, practice. And what we really work on for sax players is to get a soft, smooth sound. Sax players have a tendency to really play loud and brash, and I think it's kind of the nature of the instrument, and so what we have to do is tone it down, and they have to learn to control their airstream and their embouchure to get that nice, beautiful, soft sound. So I have a rule for all your parents. Generally speaking, if your child's practice is annoying to you, then probably they're not practicing correctly. So just remember that. Now we'd like to play for you our next band arrangement, Pray to the Bells.
I'd like to talk briefly about the brass and percussion instruments. At all 3 schools, I have taught the brass and percussion instruments. However, I don't think Mrs. Fiddler explained that I started out teaching the brass at Schroeder, but now since the size of the group and the scheduling, she has the entire program there at Schroeder. So she's also teaching the brass. But the brass players had to start out getting the best possible sound in their mouthpieces. I didn't ask them to do this, but I'm going to ask them right now. Brass players, could you take your mouthpiece off your instrument right now? And when I indicate so, I'd like you to just buzz, the best possible buzz, and then I'll cut you off. Ready? How many of you heard that at home? Hopefully you did. Good. As a brass player, they were told to work on that to get the best possible sound, because if they ended up getting a very airy kind of sound, of course, the sound of the instrument all put together would sound not as good. So they worked on that. They also worked on getting a high pitch and a low pitch and making sure that they could get that. Then, of course, they learned to read the music and find out exactly what those pitches were called. And now we're extending our range in the brass family. The trombones, of course, are learning different slide combinations and being able to very quickly move from one to another. And now the percussion section, as you can see, they've been playing the bells and the snare drum and the bass drum. And now we're getting into using the tambourine and suspended cymbal and also triangle. So they've got just a taste of what it's going to be like when they go on into middle school and high school, and they'll just play an array of percussion instruments. Very interesting for them. And they've been working, of course, the first semester on just the bells. So they've been able to read the pitches, the melody, up and down. And now we're concentrating on mostly rhythm with the snare drum and the bass drum, and then the other auxiliary instruments. So we just want to encourage your child and encourage you, no matter what instrument they're taking, to really continue to work hard. I'm sure it's after this evening, as you take them out for ice cream or whatever you have intended to do afterward, as you celebrate. This is a celebration of a great concert and a lot of hard work. Also, I want to mention one other thing before we play our final piece, and that is we will be sending home another evaluation, actually two more, but one more before the midwinter break, and then also the very final evaluation at the very end of the school year. And we hope that even though that rental period will be coming due just prior to the midwinter break, that you encourage your child to keep going. If they've been successful tonight, and if they've been able to keep up and participate this evening, like almost everyone has, then they really should continue. Please encourage them to do so. We'd like to conclude this evening with one of our favorites. We played just a little bit of it at the beginning of our concert. And the students will not be shouting, "Let's Go Band." They're going to be shouting something else, I'm sure, that is an expression of how they feel right now.
pretty superb for only